Next up, really powerful, sweet soul who got to connect with in the last few months, who's does a lot of work. Part of what I'm mostly, I don't know if we'll get into this in our talk today, but one of the things I'm personally most excited about, some of the work she does includes nervous system healing. And that's something I've, the last few years through study, through my own experiences, through connecting with others, I've come to learn is maybe fundamental. And a lot of the concerns we have about the state of the world, a lot of that perhaps stems from unhealed nervous system. So, but we're going to have Hannah Blake join us for talk on conscious leadership. Let's make her feel welcome.
So when I first started my work, I created a somatic healing method that I took around the world. And a lot of that initial work was building programs out of safe houses for women who were coming out of domestic violent relationships. And a lot of these women were survivors of sex trafficking. And that was some of the most rewarding work that I've ever done in my life to this day. And very soon after I launched those programs, I was asked to start working with high impact executives. And to be completely honest, at first, I had a lot of resistance. I was like, I don't want to work with this demographic. What do these people need from me that they don't already have? So that was my work. And fast forward a few years later, I led a retreat at a regenerative community and retreat center in Costa Rica that I'm part of the founding team of, called HOLOS. And at this retreat, one of the most successful men, one of the wealthiest men, a serial entrepreneur and investor from Canada, came. And he said, I don't know what love is. I have no idea what it feels like to access love inside of my heart. And by the end of our 5 days together, he had tears in his eyes and he said, Hannah, I feel love for the first time in my life. That was also one of the highlights of my career. And for months after, I got to see how that not only transformed his life, but how it transformed his relationship with his wife, with his kids, how it informed a complete rehaul of his company culture, how the next book that he's writing has a huge section on somatic embodied leadership, and how now the direction of his capital flow has completely shifted into what I deem conscious capital flow. And so I realized that this is actually a really incredibly important demographic for me to work with, because regulated, healing, embodied leaders create a healing and compassionate world. I was listening to Elon Musk interview, the last one he did with Lex Fridman, and he said very simply, when I'm depressed, I make worse decisions. It's so obvious that this is the case. And so what happens when people like Elon actually feel inspired and resourced and regulated? Like, pretty incredible things happen when people with his brain capacity and his reach are regulated. And so this brings me to imagining a world where this actually can happen. And this is the project that I am launching. At the base is this question that a lot of people, I think I've been carrying like tendrils of this question for many, many years, around why don't world leaders sit with ayahuasca or psilocybin prior to taking office? And that's kind of precisely what I'm proposing we do. So I am starting my next project called the Legacy Project, which is essentially bringing together the most brilliant minds on the planet to utilize psychedelic medicine, specifically indigenous traditional medicines, with somatic psychotherapy in order to first return home to themselves and their own self-actualization, and then two, from that place, ideate on solving the world's most critical issues. How? Through my specialty, which is creating liminal spaces of transformation for people to do the deepest work of their lives. This is what I've been doing for 11 years. I've been training with indigenous wisdom keepers. I've been training with the greatest clinicians on the planet. Dr. Gabor Monte is one of our advisors. Stan Groff is our biggest advisor at HOLOS. So this is what I'm wanting to bring together, but with like the highest echelon of change makers on the planet. So at the heart of this experience, like I touched on, is somatic psychotherapy and psychedelic medicine. And Elliot touched on this a little bit too. The importance of somatic psychotherapy is it supports the reorientation and the re-regulation of the nervous system to safety. So somatic, soma means body. Somatic psychotherapy is the study of the body as the subconscious mind, how we actually store memory on a neuropeptide level in our cells, our tissues, our organs, and our nervous system. It is also the study of how the vagus nerve sends signals significantly faster from the body to the brain than the brain does to the body. And many people on the planet, especially high-level executives who are really living in their left brain, which is super awesome sometimes and can also create a lot of productivity. But there's this incredible thing that happens when these people get reassociated to their hearts, their bodies, and a regulated nervous system. That is how we feel resourced. That is how we feel whole. That is how we create from a place of compassion and inspiration. Now pair this with neuroplasticity and it gets even cooler. So introducing an indigenous traditional medicine to the brain and body. I mean, the way that certain medicines interface with the cells of our body is something that we're still studying. But what we know is it creates new neural networks, and it also gives us access to a significantly larger portion of our brain while we're in a window of neuroplasticity. So during that time, think about bringing together the most brilliant minds in a window of neuroplasticity with the right somatic facilitator to allow them to also come into a space of nervous system regulation and embodiment. That is the space, I believe, that we can really start to think critically and creatively about solving the most critical issues of our time. So again, this is not just like a 5-day retreat and experience. This is an incubator for world leaders to do the deepest work of their life and then actually take that aligned transformation into explicit action, solution-oriented action in the world, and to do it as a collective. We know who Legacy is for. I've been saying that, so we'll skip that. The long-term vision, so phase 1, which I plan to launch in the next 6 months, is this 5-day incubation with a period of integration after. Phase 2 is going to be a year-long cohort experience with 2 of these immersions. And then phase 3, I will be launching the fellowship plan and community. Right now, I'm looking for strategic partners, and I am currently putting together our first cohort. So for anyone who is interested in also participating in this, please reach out to me. You can email me here at info@somayamethod.com. And then because I am a poet, I have to end with a poem that I wrote. Converse with life reciprocally. Let it change you. You are not but a traveler here, you are a story maker, both the poet and the muse. You are a breathstroke on the canvas of life's great masterpiece, made more beautiful by everything around it. You came here to be a part of something. Your aloneness is an illusion. Stretch your identity just beyond the edges, and you'll see that there are none. You'll see that you are not only changed by the canvas of life, but that you are a life that changes the canvas. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, as I was saying, I think perhaps nervous system healing is actually, and actually follows onto what Arnaud was talking about, bringing this kind of broader conscious, more compassionate leadership into other worlds that aren't necessarily plugged into spaces like this, really important. And I know even for myself, we've all been, in different forms of like different paradigms at different times in our lives, different dopamine traps that are really just a trauma response or a response to nervous systems being dysregulated. And so if you think of those who are, making decisions that harm the planet, in part, why is it? Well, they're getting something, right? If you just, sign a big deal for some extractive company, well, in your world, that's actually a win. And so, and if that stuff is not healed, we need those wins, right? And so this might be a big unlock at scale. So appreciate having you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having. It's my pleasure.